So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now, and we're going to go ahead and move forward and start working on our profiles. So if you guys can please have that open now. Alrighty. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll to what we're going to be working on today. Give me 1 second, since my screen is being a little weird. Alrighty, so can you guys all see my screen okay? Thumbs up if you guys can. Awesome, perfect, thank you guys. Okay, so we're gonna be working on the short description about me today, along with the family background and the personal and academic traits, like I said in the beginning. So basically, what we're gonna do, I'm gonna go through the instructions for each one. I'm gonna give you guys about a few minutes to work on it, and then we're gonna go ahead and share and then move on to the next few sections. So the first section, again, is a short description about me. So for some of you guys, this might be a little easier to be able to talk about yourself and pick a few words to describe yourselves. For some of you guys, it might be a little harder because either you don't know where to begin or you don't know what words you can use to describe yourself. So we're going to be working on this together to make it a little easier. And maybe for those of you guys who already know how to describe yourselves, maybe think about a little more in depth about what makes you who you are. So what we're going to do in order to describe ourselves is we're going to start looking at our values. So what do we value? What do we think is something really important in our lives? What do we think is important for us to be successful or to have a positive and healthy environment? That's what we're going to be looking for as far as what makes us who we are. So in a little bit, I'm going to show you guys a list of values. You guys are going to pick 3 values from the list. So 3 values that either you think are the most important to you or closely resemble who you are, or you follow every day and it's a consistent thing and you try to make it a consistent thing. Whatever the case is, you're going to pick 3 of the values that you think are the most important in your life and that most resemble how you consistently are and how your life is on the daily. Once you pick those 3 values, we're going to come back and we're going to start working on how to describe those values as far as how they describe us. So before we do that, before I give those instructions, I'm going to go ahead and go through the values list. So we have a value list here. I'm going to try to add these onto also your document, but I'm going to be sharing them right here so you guys can see them on the screen and pick 3 now. So go ahead and look through the list. I'll scroll down a little bit. Try to find 3 values that closely resemble who you are, that are the most important to you, whatever the case may be, that you closely believe resemble who you are or are really important or really speak out to you. So it's going to be 3. I'm go through the list. Once you have your 3, make sure that you write it under the short description about me section, and then I'll give you guys further instructions on what to do with those 3 values. So I'll give you guys a few moments to look through the list. I will scroll down in a few seconds. So make sure you guys are looking through this. Make sure that you guys are able to pick 3 values that closely resemble who you are. Alrighty, so I'm going to scroll down a little bit now. So here's a little bit more values. Again, pick 3, whatever closely resembles who you are, whatever is most important to you, pick 3 values. And then once you have picked those, write them down on your My Profile. Alrighty, gonna scroll down a little bit more now. Alrighty. Again, 3 values. If you already have those 3 values, please press the yes button on the participant tab so I can see how many of you guys have those 3 values already. If everyone has it, then I'll go ahead and move on over to the instructions. If not, I'll scroll to the bottom of the list so you guys can still look at the rest of the values. Alrighty, so we are at the bottom of the list. So make sure that once you guys have written your 3 values down in your My Profile, you press the yes button so I can see how many of you guys have that finished. Alrighty, so make sure that you guys are picking those 3 values and writing it down. And when you guys are done, you guys are pressing the yes button. So I see about 3 of you guys have finished. So we're only waiting about 5 more of you guys. I'll scroll up a little bit if you haven't found anything towards the end that really speaks out to you in case you're looking for that one extra value. So you're only required 3. Make sure you guys are picking 3, whatever is most important to you, whatever really speaks out to you, make sure you're, or whatever closely you follow consistently and daily, make sure you're writing that down. Alrighty, I'll give everyone about 30 more seconds to finish up and look for those 3 values. Make sure that you guys are getting 3. 3 is going to be the minimum. Awesome, awesome. I see more of you guys are wrapping up. I'm going to scroll up one last time and then give everyone else about 15, 20 more seconds to look at their values and write them down. Alrighty, so for the most part, many of you guys have your values ready. If you guys are still looking through the values list, I'm going to keep this up and then I'm going to move on in the next minute, but I'm going to start giving it the rest of you guys some instructions. So you guys can go ahead and turn off your yes buttons now. So what we're going to do with the 3 values that you've chosen, you're going to look at those 3 values. Obviously, you picked them because they either are important to you, they speak out to you. Again, that's kind of the directions that I gave you to pick these values. And now you're going to be using these values to write how they describe who you are. So I'm going to go ahead and move over to the next document. If you need the values list again, please message me privately and I'll put it back after I give out the instructions. So once you pick the 3 values, you're going to write at least 2 sentences for each value. And each sentence is going to describe something in particular. So the first sentence or the first 2 sentences, because I do write 2 sentences, you're going to talk about where that value really was demonstrated by either you or by someone else, or you're going to talk about where that value really came into play, was demonstrated, was shown, where that value really stood out to you in that moment, in a specific moment. So for example, I chose dependability. That's a value that's really important to me. And I talked about my senior year of high school, how my parents and other of my loved ones couldn't attend some important senior highlights of mine. But on my senior night of tennis, my best friend actually showed up a few minutes before his shift to support me in my senior night. So that was a moment where dependability really stood out to me, that I could always depend on my best friend in a moment where I really needed him or where I really wanted someone to be there for me. So that moment really highlighted dependability. And as you can tell, I'm adding a lot of detail. I'm talking about what year of it was in high school, who was involved, what was the situation. So you guys need to start looking and adding in that detail, that same amount of detail in your sentence, probably 2 sentences. Alrighty. So once you finish that first part, the second sentence is going to talk about what impact it had on you. So for example, again, I chose dependability, and the fact that my best friend came out to see me right before his work shift showed to me that I always want to be someone that others can rely on, because the fact that I was able to rely on my best friend made me really happy and made me want to succeed even more. So I want to be able to make sure, or I want to be able to give that same sense of happiness or motivation to other people. So that's why that's the impact that dependability had on me. And in the sense, it's also describing who I am. So that's why I wanted to pick values, because they're already important factors in your life. They're already either you practice them consistently or they really guide who you are and what you do and your actions. So that's why we're going to pick values to start off with. So you guys have your 3 values. Write 2 sentences for each value based on the criteria. So one sentence is going to talk about when that value really stood out to you, and the second sentence is going to talk about what impact it had on you. Once you guys are done, please press the yes button so I can know how many of you guys have finished. Are there any questions that I can answer so far? Awesome. Alrighty, so
We have a question.
yeah, what's up?
Is it just like all three of the terms or just one of the terms that we chose?
All three of the values. So you are doing 2 sentences for all three of the values. So in this section, you should have about 6 sentences at minimum.
Got it.
Awesome. Alrighty, so I'll give you guys the next 4 minutes to try and wrap this up. I'll check in those 4 minutes to see how you guys are doing. If you are done and you finish with these 6 sentences, please press the yes button so I can see kind of the track that you guys are on. Again, you're trying to make sure that you're really talking about the moment where that value really stood out to you. Like, what was the situation? Like, again, I talked about dependability, and the moment where dependability really stood out to me was my best friend being there for me during my senior night. And knowing that I could always depend on him no matter if he had a work shift or if he had something else going on. And the impact that that had on me is that I always wanted to be someone that others could rely on. So that's what you're talking about. And it's also talking about you talking about your values is in a sense talking about who you are. So it's a little easier to talk about a short description about me through your values. Alrighty, I will go back to the values list if you want to change a value or if you weren't able to pick all three of your values, and then I'll give everyone about a minute to look through this before I switch back to the instructions. Alrighty. So about 3 more minutes. Try to see if you can wrap them up. Again, it's going to be 6 sentences in total for this section for the short description about me. You're writing 2 sentences for each value. So it's not just 2 sentences for the first value, it's for each value. And if there is any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Alrighty, I'm going to scroll down a little bit in case you weren't able to get those 3 values. So another example of this section would definitely be like, let's say if I was talking about, let's see, what is here? Maybe I was talking about, let me scroll down a little bit since I know that I didn't pick any of these. Let's, for example, say that I was talking about teamwork. Teamwork is something that I value. So I can definitely mention, as far as like a moment where teamwork stood out to me, I can mention how in my senior year, or actually it was my junior year, when we were getting ready to present our mock trial case, we actually decided to spend extra time on Saturday as a team to work together and give each other feedback and run through our entire case, which is about 2 to 3 hours. And we were doing this early on a Saturday morning. I think it was like 8 o'clock. So that definitely showed us teamwork. It definitely showed me dedication as well. And what that showed me was that anything is possible together as a team if we're both encouraging each other, if we're both pushing each other, and if we're helping one another out. So I always want to make sure that as when I'm working with a team, that I'm always putting my best foot forward. I'm always offering the most support I can. I'm always pushing myself and my teammates to do the best work possible. So that's definitely something that describes who I am. So that's why we're choosing values, because it's a little easier to describe how that relates to you based on what you already follow and what's important to you. Alrighty, so if you are done, press that yes button. I think we have Yasmin, you're done. What was one of the values that you picked, and what was your 2 sentences for it?
I chose hardworking and growth and challenges, but I can talk about hardworking because I'm always like going, like, I don't know, I'm like, it's like, I don't know, I'm like always, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I'm always multitasking and like trying to balance everything. Like, I always try to make sure I get all my work done, also balance like a job and family and friends. So I'm like, feel like I don't know how to explain it, but that's what I was just talking about that
Awesome.
and how
Alrighty.
everything and stuff. But yeah.
That's awesome. So that's definitely, yeah, you're hardworking, and it definitely describes who you are. It's something you value hard work, and you're definitely hardworking yourself. So make sure that when you're talking about it, and I'm pretty sure you talked about it a little bit, make sure you're talking about a moment where your hard work really stood out to you. So maybe you were able to balance out a really stressful week and everything that you wanted to get finished was finished. So talk about that week. Make sure that you really just talk about a moment where your hard work really stood out to you and was really beneficial to you. But then you also talk about how it impacted you. So you pretty much have that done, the second sentence done. Alrighty, so again, if you are done, press that yes button. I'm gonna give everyone about another 2 minutes, see where you guys are at, see if we can get majority of you guys to be wrapping it up. So try to wrap it up in the next 2 minutes. When you guys are finished, go ahead and press that yes button so I can go ahead and sell. And again, it's 2 sentences for each value, and you guys needed to pick 3 minimum. So it's 6 sentences under this section, and make sure you guys are adding detail. So if you are talking about either being hardworking or if you're talking about, again, teamwork, really talk about the moment where those 2 values stood out. So for example, if you're talking about teamwork, maybe talk about when you worked as a team, what happened, what did you do, what did you gain from the situation. If you're talking about hard work, talk about a moment where your hard work paid off. So maybe you were really putting a lot of work into a project or an exam, and you were able to pass that exam, and you learned that anything is possible if you really work for it. Whatever the case was, make sure that you're being really specific about your description, about what was happening and when that moment stood out to you and what you gained from it. Alrighty, another minute or so. If you are done, again, press that yes button so I can see where we're all at. If not, I'll give everyone about another minute. Alrighty, if you guys are done, please press that yes button. I'm gonna go back to the directions. Make sure you guys are having this wrapped up now. I am finishing a rubric for the next 3 sections. I do have a rubric ready for the first 2 sections, and I'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end of seminar. But I am wrapping up the rubric for these following 3 sections that we're working this week. So I want to make sure that you guys have all the components, and basically the instructions is kind of what I'm going off of for the rubric. So if you're following the instructions and you're finishing it up to the full extent, then you should be good. But just make sure that you guys are following this. Just because when the rubric comes out, I'm going to see which one of you guys and who of you guys might need a little bit of extra help. And I'm going to ask you guys to come in for some extra time to finish that up. So I want to make sure that you guys have the full time to finish it up right now and you guys are working consistently. Alrighty, so for those of you who haven't finished, if you haven't pressed yes, I can already tell how many of you guys haven't. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes towards the end of the seminar to wrap that up, but I'm going to go ahead and present the instructions for the next section now. So for this section, we're going to move forward to family background. This is going to be a little shorter, but it's going to require the same amount of details, the same amount of specifics. So for the family background, you're going to pick 2 characteristics about your family. So 2 factors or 2 interesting things about your family that really shaped who you are and really impacted you personally or academically. So it really influenced who you became either academically or personally. So for example, I picked my home duties. That's a characteristic in my family that I wanted to speak about as far as how it impacted me personally. So I talked about how, as the oldest in my family, I had to take on a lot of responsibility of watching over my sister, my younger sister, quite often. Also, because I was the oldest female in my house, I also had to take on more of the chores and the household responsibilities and the well-being of my family members more than other members of my family. So I definitely talked about my home duties based on what my family is like. And because my family is such a small family, and because I am the oldest female in my family, this is what I was responsible for. So that's what you're talking about in this first sentence. Whatever characteristic you pick to talk about, which there's a few examples here, you can talk about the cultural background. So what is your culture like? What race, ethnicity do you come from, and how has that impacted you? You can talk about your home duties and responsibilities like I do. You can talk about the size of your family and how that's impacted you. Maybe you have a really big family and you have more responsibilities as the oldest, or maybe like the second oldest, or maybe you have a smaller family, but because you have a smaller family, you also have more responsibilities because there's not a lot of people to share it with. Whatever the case is, from that characteristic, you're going to talk about how it relates specifically to you. So, again, I talk about my home duty specifically because of my family. This is what I'm responsible for. I'm the oldest and the oldest female, and I'm responsible for more house chores and for the well being of my sister. So once you guys explain that in one sentence, the second sentence is going to be you talking about how has that affected you personally or academically. So me talking about my home responsibilities as far as taking care of my sister, it impacted me and influenced me personally because I gained a level of maturity that was a little bit higher or much more developed at a faster rate than the rest of my peers. So I developed maturity much at a very much younger age, at a very heightened sense of maturity at a much younger age because of my home responsibilities and my home duties. So that's how I was influenced personally. Whatever the case is, whatever characteristics you're talking about, you're going to pick two different characteristics about your family. So, two factors about your family that really have influenced you personally or academically. And then you're going to write two sentences about each characteristic. So, this section is only going to be about 4 sentences. But again, it's going to require the same level of detail and attention to specific moments. So, again, I talk about being the oldest female. I talk about specifically what my family is like. So make sure that you're being really specific and detailed. And again, the first sentence is going to be kind of the background information. So who is involved? What are your responsibilities? Or what is the situation? What does it involve and include? You're going to try to answer the 5 W's there. And then in the second sentence, you're going to talk about how it has influenced you personally and or academically. Alrighty, so are there any questions that I can answer before I let you guys work on this section?
Yes.
Yes.
So do we come up with these words on our own, or do we go back to the chart and choose from there?
So the family characteristics, it's just something in your family that has either influenced you personally or academically. So for example, like I talked about my home duties because that has influenced me personally, like I'm more mature because of it. You can talk about things like, for example, in your culture, what are some traditions that really have influenced you personally or academically? What are some kind of responsibilities that fall on you as either the oldest or as a male, female, whatever the case is? How has that affected you? If you have a smaller or bigger family, how has that influenced you personally or academically? What impact has that had on you? So it's basically kind of just factors and characteristics in your family that has really shaped who you are. I hope that was helpful a little bit.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Alrighty. Okay, so I'm gonna give everyone a few minutes to wrap this up. I'm gonna start off with 3 minutes, see how you guys, where you guys are at. So make sure that once you guys are finished, you're pressing the yes button to see your progress. If you want, if maybe you don't know which characteristics to emphasize, I do have a little chart right here that I will show right now. That talks about a few other things in one's family that can be important. So, for example, maybe you can talk about work and how work is an important trait in your family that really influenced you personally or academically. Like, for example, for me, my father, because he is the main provider of our house right now, he works quite often and I don't see him very much. So, again, that influenced me because it did make me more independent and responsible about myself. You can talk about maybe family or parenting styles. So, what were some things that your parents, while growing up, did that really influenced you personally or academically? You can talk about leisure time. How do you guys use the free time that you have? What do you guys do? How has that influenced you? There's different things you can talk about in your family, but make sure you guys are picking two characteristics that mostly or had a really big impact on you personally or academically. Try to shoot for academically, but if you can't think of anything academic, definitely turn to something that has had a very big impact on you personally. And again, it's 2 characteristics. So you can talk, maybe one characteristic can be the work time that is spent in your family, and another can be the parenting styles that you grew up with. Whatever the 2 characteristics are, make sure you pick 2, and then there's 2 sentences for each of those. So it's going to be 4 sentences in total for this section. Alrighty, are there any other questions? Awesome. So I'm going to go back to the instructions now. Give you guys about another 2 minutes. Once you guys are finished, please press that yes button. I'm going to see how your guys' progress is in the next 2 minutes. Try to wrap it up in the next 2 minutes. But make sure that if you are taking a little bit longer, it's because you're adding the details and the specifics about your characteristics and your family in the background. So make sure you're really hitting specific moments. So for example, if I was talking about family size, my first sentence can go something like, being a family of 3, because of my mother's passing when I was at a very young age, I have learned what it's like to share responsibilities and duties of my house more, with more responsibilities to each person. Also, being a family of 3 has made me realize how important my inner circle of my family is. So I definitely spend a lot more time with my father and my sister than other members of my family, because we are such a small family. And the impact that has on me personally is that I'm learning how to keep my inner circle and to keep to make sure I definitely build a level of trust between the people that I really believe are in my inner circle that are not family. So I'm learning how to make sure that I'm really trust the people that are around me, and make sure that those people I also consider like my second family. So that's something that I can talk about.
Oh, wait, I have a question. You said put a green check when we're done, right?
Yes, press the yes button, the green check. Awesome.
Okay, I did that. Okay.
Awesome. So yeah, if you guys aren't aware of what the yes button is, the green check in the participants tab. So please press that once you guys have finished up. Alrighty, so about another minute for everyone to wrap up. I'm gonna make sure I'm hitting all of the instructions, and then I'll give you guys a few minutes to wrap up the 3 sections if you're not done in the time. Also, I apologize if it is a little dark because of daylight saving. I am running out of sunlight in my room. Alrighty. Alrighty, about 30 more seconds. Try to get it finished. If you are finished, please press that yes button or the little green check mark in the participant tab so I can know who has wrapped up. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and move forward. Again, don't worry if you haven't finished quite yet. Make sure that you at least have the characteristics down, and then you guys have, you'll have a little bit of time afterwards or right before the end of seminar to finish up the sentences. But make sure that you guys are working on it and you guys are trying to finish that up. If not, you guys will be coming in for at least an extra 30 or an hour to finish it up outside of seminar. So I don't want you guys coming in for more time when we are doing it together as a group and as a seminar group. So make sure you guys are trying to finish it up now. Alrighty, so the next section that we're going to finish up today is the personal and academic traits. Now, many of you guys have either highlighted or underlined the traits that you guys think closely resemble you guys, which is awesome. You guys got the first part out of the way. I'm going to talk about the instructions for the second part right now. But the first part of this section is you're just going to pick 3 to 4 traits that either really resemble who you are or that speak the best about you. So this is, you're going to look at the traits and think, yep, this is exactly who I am, or this is really important to me, or this closely resembles who I am. So once you guys pick those 3 or 4 traits, make sure you highlight them or underline them so you know which traits they are, which ones you have picked. Once you have picked those 3 to 4 traits, what you're going to do is right underneath this section where it says the list of traits, you're going to start by writing what trait you have picked. So for example, if I pick my trait to be concern for others, I'm going to put concern for others, and then I'm going to start writing 2 sentences. So again, you're going to be writing 2 sentences for each trait you pick, and what the sentences are going to be talking about is in the first sentence for your trait, you're going to be talking about how you have either practiced or demonstrated these traits, how you have shown this trait to others or to yourself, and how much impact this trait has on your actions and in your decisions. So again, let's say I picked concern for others. My first sentence would talk about how I've demonstrated this trait. So, for example, I can talk about this week I had my last midterm was a peer presentation in class, and the person that I had the peer presentation with actually ended up having some Wi-Fi issues, so she could not work on her peer presentation or couldn't type it out before we wanted to have it ready. So I offered my support first I wanted to check in on how she was doing, because obviously Wi-Fi being down right now is such a stressful situation. So I checked on how she was doing, if she was okay physically and emotionally. Then I offered my support. So I let her know like if she needed me to type it out or if she needed me to write it down and then submit it, just to let me know like what she really wanted to highlight for our peer presentation. So I made sure that I offered my resources and help, because I really was concerned for her and her well-being, and also concerned that we were both getting the best grade that we could. And that's how I demonstrated my concern for others. That would be my sentence, or actually it'd be two sentences talking about how I demonstrate this trait, and specifically when I demonstrated this trait. The second sentence about how much impact it's had on my decisions, I can definitely say the fact that concern for others is a really important trait for me. Really influences my decisions when I'm interacting with someone else, and I can tell that they're not doing well either physically or emotionally. It makes me want to be able to offer my support to them in whatever they need, and within my capabilities. So if I can get something done that they need, I will do it. Obviously, if it's something that I can't get done, I'll try my best to help them out with it. So that's the impact that it has on my decisions and my actions. My concern for others, that's the impact it has. So with that being said, you guys are going to pick your 3 to 4 traits. I hope you guys have already done that. Then you guys are going to write 2 sentences for these 3 to 4 traits. So you're going to write it right underneath, right here. You're going to write down your 3 to 4 sentences here, or your 2 sentences here for your 3 to 4 traits. So it should be about 6 to 8 sentences in total for this section. Is there any questions that I can help you guys out with? Awesome. So make sure again that you guys are hitting detail. The rubric for the My Profile is really going to be emphasizing detail and how much specific detail you were able to put in your My Profile. Because your My Profile is intentionally a document that you would show a person that you're asking a letter of recommendation for, you really want to make sure you have as much detail as possible so that person can gain a bigger and deeper insight about who you are and why you're asking the letter of recommendation. So make sure that you're putting as much detail and as much specific detail as you can. Alrighty, so I'll give you guys about 3 minutes to start with to finish this up. If you are finished with this section, please press the yes button so I can know, which is the green check mark in the participant tab if you guys have forgotten. Again, it's 3 to 4 traits, 2 sentences for each trait. So it's going to be between 6 to 8 sentences for this section. I'm going to start off with about actually 4 minutes to give you a little bit of extra time since it is a longer section for some of you guys, and then we will move forward from there. Alrighty, is there any questions that I can help out with? Alrighty, make sure you guys are working on this. Make sure you guys are trying to finish it up. I really don't want to keep you guys or ask you to come in an extra 30 minutes or an hour during the week on top of your seminar, your study group, because I know that you guys are working on it now, or you should be working on it now. So make sure that you guys are trying to finish it up. Alrighty, so again, make sure that you are picking 3 to 4 traits. That should have already been done by now. Once you've picked the 3 to 4 traits, make sure that you are writing 2 sentences for each trait. And make sure you guys are working on this. I am starting this week asking some people to come in addition to seminar and study group, to finish up their My Profile. So if you want to avoid an extra 30 minutes to an hour of work outside of seminar and study group, please make sure that you guys are trying to wrap this up now. Alrighty, when you guys are finished, please press that yes button. There's a lot of good character traits here that should be fairly easy to talk about, especially maybe when you've demonstrated leadership, that you could definitely think about a moment where you've been a leader and you can talk about the situation, like were you a group leader, were you a leader in a club, etc. You can definitely talk about if you picked maybe responsible or integrity. You can definitely talk about a moment where you've shown integrity or where you have taken on a responsibility that maybe wasn't yours, or maybe that you knew someone needed help with, etc. So make sure you're talking about a specific moment for each of these traits, and then you're talking about how that trait influences your decisions and your actions. Alrighty, so about 1 more minute, actually 2 more minutes to finish this up, and then we'll go on a quick break. So 2 more minutes, everyone. Try to wrap this up. If you are done, please press that yes button so I can tell. So 2 more minutes. If you have any questions, if it is a little confusing, please let me know. Don't feel afraid to ask me any questions if it is a little confusing. All right, another minute. Make sure you're trying to wrap it up now. Make sure that you have either 6 to 8 sentences or close to 6 to 8 sentences finished up in this section. After break, I'll give you guys the rest of the time left in the seminar to finish up the 3 sections, whatever you haven't finished in each section. But try to make sure that you're knocking out this section now so you don't have more work to turn towards. Make sure you are working on this. I am starting to reach out to more people to try to get their My Profiles done. As a matter of fact, we are having a makeup session tomorrow, so make sure you are working on this. If not, I will be reaching out to you to come in tomorrow for an extra 30 minutes to an hour. Alrighty, so we're gonna go on a quick water break. If everyone can be back by 5:53 with cameras on, you guys can go ahead and turn off your cameras now, but make sure you guys are back at 5:53. Alrighty, I'll see you guys in a bit. Alrighty, so we are at 5:54. So if you are already here, if you guys can go ahead and turn your cameras on now. I'll give everyone up until 55 to join us. Alrighty, welcome back, those of you guys who have joined us. Awesome. Alrighty, so it is 55. So you guys can, if you guys can please come back with cameras on. For the next 5 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the rest of the time to finish up these 3 sections. Once you are done with all 3 sections, please go ahead and press that yes button so I can go ahead and check in and see if you guys have finished all the components, but make sure that you are taking the time to finish the 3 sections. So quickly review for the short description about me, you're picking 3 values and you're writing 2 sentences for each value. So there should be a minimum of 6 sentences in the short description about me section. For the family background, you're picking 2 characteristics and writing 2 sentences for each characteristic. So there should be 4 sentences minimum in this section. And then for the personal and academic traits, you are picking 3 to 4 traits and then writing 2 sentences for each trait that you pick. So it's anywhere from 6 to 8 sentences depending on how many traits you picked. So again, please take the next the next 4 minutes to finish it up now.